Dirt Trax is sponsored by Can-Am. The ride says it all. Polaris, the hardest working, smoothest riding off-road vehicles. And by Yamaha Motor Canada. What kind of Yamaha are you?
When it comes to having the hardest working, smoothest riding side-by-sides in the industry, it would appear that for Polaris, the best just isn't good enough. Their XP 800 Ranger is already the hardest working, smoothest riding side-by-side in the entire ATV industry. But apparently for them, that's just not good enough.
At Polaris, we're continually committed to improving our products and the ride experience for our consumers. The Ranger 800 is the current standard of hardest working, smoothest riding, but we know in some ways we can do better. And so we're introducing the all-new Ranger XP 900. The Ranger XP 900 is way more than just reskinning the Ranger 800. We started from the ground up, a whole new architecture in which the engine and transmission are pushed behind the seated area. We're focused on power, efficiency, and the best experience for our consumers.
This new 900 motor is a version of, or has similarities to, the Razor XP 950, but it's not the same motor. This one has been tuned for more work-oriented, torquey power. It puts out 60 horsepower, and it's buttery smooth, just like the Razor 950 is buttery smooth. This one really allows you to crawl or pull no matter what the situation requires.
The XP 900 is powered by a version of the ProStar 900 engine. It cranks out 60 horsepower and it's been tuned for work for Ranger. Additional benefits above and beyond power of the ProStar 900 is that it's positioned behind the cabin area.
This motor also has an integrated transaxle and transmission housing, so it's all one piece. And what this does is help keep the clutches exactly the same distance from each other as the motor is under power, which is more efficient and helps increase belt life. It also cuts down on the number of components used to build the vehicle, which aids in durability and longevity.
With moving the engine behind the seated area, that opened up some additional possibilities. We're able to improve ergonomics by lowering the seat, moving the pedals further forward to preserve great ergonomics for big people, and provide flexibility in seating, things like an adjustable seat slider. And of course, we deliver electronic power steering standard on many of our models. Hardest working, smoothest riding has been the DNA for Ranger and what we've been about for years. We took this vehicle to a new level. We made sure that the seating is comfortable and adjustable for our consumers.
At first glance, it might seem like the chassis and the suspension design of the XP 900 is very similar, at least, to the old XP 800, but the truth is, it is not the same.
The chassis is 100% stiffer in torsional stiffness, and we've added more suspension travel. The Ranger XP 900 suspension delivers the smoothest ride yet. We've added more suspension travel, we've lengthened the wheelbase by 5 inches, which provides a smoother ride, and the Ranger XP 900 has the most progressive suspension system in the Ranger utility line. The consumers can expect an improved ride, and a more progressive suspension rate means it's plusher through the small bumps and it's more proud at full payload. And in work applications, it's less likely to sag when you load it up to its full limits. One of the founding building blocks of the Ranger XP 900 was to make sure that we made a step function change in the level of accessory integration.
I gotta say, this vehicle takes accessorization and integration to a whole different planet. This is a whole different deal.
There are over 100 accessories ready to go for the Ranger XP 900, including an all-new ProFit lock and ride cab system. The cab frame on the Ranger XP 900 allows for a whole new level of fit and finish of windshields, rooftops, and rear panels. A premium vehicle like the Ranger XP 900 deserves lots of accessories. Bumpers, brush guards, full cab systems that go all the way up to systems with doors with power windows in them. The goal of the Ranger XP 900 was to reinvent ourselves and make a huge leap forward for our consumers. Because if we don't do it, somebody else may try.
From the beginning to end, this XP900 is a better Ranger XP. And if you had to ask me a month ago whether or not that was possible, I probably would have said, I don't think so.
The Ranger XP900 is going to provide a better consumer experience because we built the vehicle around the consumer and their usage.
I've done a lot of test rides over the years. ATVs, side-by-sides, and one time I even did a generator. But it seems like any time a cool on-road vehicle comes up, especially a Spyder, Mark jumps all over it. Well, not this time, old man. This one is mine. This season I've made a point of spending as much time on the Spyder as possible. I had 1,000 miles racked up on it in only a few weeks, and I'm getting to the point now where the good stuff is feeling really good and the annoying stuff is really starting to show through. It's taken me a lot longer than usual to get a really good feel for the Spyder for two simple reasons. First and foremost, we don't test a lot of Roadsters here on dirt tracks, so my usual testing criteria gets thrown right out the window. And second, it's really hard to be non-biased when a vehicle makes you feel this cool. The Spyder's been around for a while, and more of them are appearing on public roads everywhere we go. But the newness and cool factor don't seem to have worn off one bit. If you ride a Spyder, get ready for some attention. People stop and stare. Kids point and get excited. People want to chat with you at every gas station and donut shop along your way. The RSS we're testing today is my favorite Spyder model so far. Its orange and black color scheme looks mean from any angle, and because it's an RS body, it's way more fun to ride and can be ridden way more aggressively than the RT version we had last year. The seating position is far more sport bike-ish and has you leaning forward with your feet under you. On a really long ride, this position can get a bit tiring, but if you ride aggressively at all, it allows for easier movement around the vehicle and a far more aggressive lean when the corners get tight. What struck me most about riding this version of the Spyder is just how similar it feels to riding a snowmobile in the winter, especially when the speeds get higher. Sure, you can corner it flat without leaning at all, but if you really want to ride this thing, you gotta get your butt off the side of the seat and get your knee out. That's what all the cool kids are doing. Under the Spyder's hood is the very same motor that has come packaged in every Spyder since it was released. A 998cc Rotax-built EFI V-twin that sounds incredible and puts out a respectable 106 horsepower and 77 pound-feet of torque. Power delivery of this big V-twin is definitely biased towards low-end torque. As the revs begin to rise and the torque curve begins to drop off, the arm-stretching sensations begin to disappear. This RSS topped out at 112 miles per hour on flat ground, which appeared to be drag, not speed limited. In the future, I think Can-Am would be doing themselves a favor by adding both higher and lower performance variations in the Spyder lineup. Many who ride the RSS we have comment on how fast it is and how much power it has. On the other hand, many people comment on how they expected more power. Either way, the Spyder is the most stable and controllable vehicle I've ever ridden on the road. Vehicle stability system, stability control, traction control, anti-lock brakes, and power steering add up to a riding experience that abounds in confidence, but to be perfectly honest, lacks a little bit of excitement if that's what you're after. Simply put, you can't get the Spyder out of shape. It won't do it, even if you want it to. It will spin its rear wheel to a max of 30 miles per hour, but if the vehicle starts to slide sideways while it's spinning, the stability control shuts her down. Straight out burnouts are all the hooligan type riding you'll be doing on a Spyder. To be fair, this vehicle's target audience is not the rubber-laying, power-sliding, neighbor-annoying crowd. The Spyder is targeted at a far more sophisticated and laid-back rider. But let's be honest, it does feel good to get a little sideways once in a while. Of all the Spyder packages available, the RSS is by far the trickiest. It features visual upgrades like carbon black aluminum, painted A-arms and spoiler, sport windshield, and upgraded black split 6-spoke front wheels. But it's really the suspension that makes this package worth the extra bling. A set of Fox Podium gas-charged shocks up front provide an extremely well-controlled ride on even the roughest pavement. They are only preload adjustable, but the factory-set compression and rebound settings appear to be nearly perfect. The only real gripe I have with the Spyder is something that only a person with a solid background in power sports would even notice, but it is something they would notice immediately. The 4-piston front and single-piston rear brake calipers are amazing. Stopping power is not a problem, and standard anti-lock programming will keep you straight no matter what. But there is only one brake lever on the whole vehicle. It's under your right foot. Anyone who has ever ridden other motorized vehicles will constantly be reaching for a front brake lever on the right side of the handlebars. This is a moot point if your first experience with a motorized vehicle other than your car is on a Spyder. You'll feel right at home. And once you get used to braking with only your right foot, it does become second nature. But as a power sports enthusiast, I would like to have the option of braking the front and rear wheels separately. Maybe this is an option BRP can add to the Spyder in the future. My overall opinion of the Spyder is simple and easy to grasp. It's an awesome vehicle that's unique and over-delivers in nearly every aspect. If looks could kill, it would be deadly. If safety is first, it's the winner. If quality is king, it gets a crown. If you're a die-hard two-wheel guy, the Spyder's flat cornering may not be to your liking. But if you're a person who has little experience on a motorcycle, or someone who just wants a more stable ride that's every bit as exciting as BRP promises it will be, the Spyder definitely has a place in your garage.
Test Ride is sponsored by Fox, redefining ride dynamics.
Say you're Polaris, and you build and sell more side-by-sides in more variations than all of your competitors. And say you have brought more innovations to the market than all of your competitors combined. Is it conceivable that you could innovate another new model that would have such a profound effect on the industry? On this week's test ride, we're going to take an up-close look at Polaris's Ranger 500 EFI. It is wildly popular and incredibly versatile, so we're going to try and answer some of those questions for you. While John Deere might claim they were the first in the side-by-side business, there's little doubt Polaris' late 90s intro of the original 6x6 Ranger was the machine which popularized and defined the side-by-side off-road vehicle for the masses. Polaris has had a unique focus on the side-by-side biz by not entrenching themselves in just one segment, but rather breaking new segments, the way the Pure Sport Razor series has. We think this new, slightly smaller Ranger utility side-by-side actually carves out another segment in this rapidly expanding and rapidly changing side-by-side industry. The Ranger 500 EFI shares its bodywork and platform with the wildly popular Ranger 400. Up front, there's Polaris's tough and durable IFS, and in the back, there's Polaris's plush and smooth IRS. There is also a tilting dump box and a powerful 500 EFI motor, all in a package that's just this much smaller than the Ranger XP 800. This allows the Ranger 500 EFI to fit in the box of a full-size pickup truck. It also makes it fit in places that previously only ATVs could go. There's more here than just fitting into things. The Ranger 500 EFI has Polaris full-on unlocking rear diff with turf mode, something no side-by-side should be without. It also features load-carrying capacity that is frankly just stupid. This smaller Ranger can carry 500 pounds in its cargo box and tow up to 1,250 pounds. So maybe you're thinking, what's the downside with a slightly smaller Ranger? Yeah, us too. In fact, we're huge fans of the full-size Ranger XP 800. It is, in our opinion, the best utility side-by-side in the industry. However, it can hold its own against some pretty impressive sport utility side-by-sides on recreational trails. Here's the confounding reality with the Ranger 500 EFI. It is a truly fun and capable recreational side-by-side as well. When we first rode this downsized Ranger, we scratched our collective helmets here at Dirt Trax. Why? Because this is not just a capable side-by-side, it is a profoundly capable vehicle that can work hard, plow snow, tow heavy trailers, and still go out and provide smiles on a rough recreational trail. The 500 EFI is so versatile, it frankly defies reason. So why would anyone shop some of the low-quality Pacific Rim side-by-sides that are in the market right now, when for ridiculously low jing, they can have a full-on Polaris Ranger that rides smooth, works hard, is built tough, and will last for years? And oh yeah, it performs oh so close to its big brother, the Ranger XP 800. The answer here is this: you cannot effectively rationalize the value factor on this side-by-side until you drive it. It represents such good value, it's no wonder Polaris literally cannot build them fast enough. So what's the real difference between the 400 Ranger and this 500 EFI variant? It's about two things. First, the 400 engine, actually a 455, and the 500 come straight out of Polaris's Sportsman Series ATVs. This 4-valve engine is the most popular motor in the history of the sport. Polaris has built and sold over 1 million of these motors. And secondly, the 500 version uses electronic fuel injection. The 500 engine does produce marginally more torque and horsepower than the 400. However, the stake is in the EFI system. If you're using your Ranger to plow snow in the winter, just go for the 500 EFI. Its chokeless cold weather operation makes cold starts and warm-ups a brainless event. Similarly, if you're operating in extreme heat and/or altitude, the 500 EFI is the only way to go to preserve sharp throttle response and clean pulling power when it's hot. Rarely does a vehicle come along in the off-road industry which hits the nail as squarely on the head as this Ranger 500 EFI. This is not just a good or a great vehicle. After hours of intensive use, or should I say after hours of intensive abuse around here, we conclude this is a truly exceptional vehicle, which after owning for just a few short weeks, you will conclude is irreplaceable.
During our Trail Tech features, we upgrade the suspension on side-by-sides quite often. However, the proper setup of your stock suspension is easy to overlook, and a lot of the time, owners are not getting the best performance for the job they're asking their side-by-side to do. So today, I'm going to try to help out. Utility side-by-sides typically use a steel body damper wrapped in a coil spring with a snail cam preload adjuster. It's a basic design offering basic adjustability. However, most riders will leave their snail cams at the factory setting. While most side-by-sides are delivered with a factory suspension setting to please the widest range of users, limited adjustment of snail cams can go a long way to stiffen up your ride when working and soften it when out on the trails. Nearly every side-by-side toolkit will come with a snail cam adjuster tool. It's encouraging users to adjust their suspension. However, you do need to be careful that the snail cam adjuster on your shock hasn't become seized to the steel shock body. This can happen, and if you put all of your weight behind it, you're going to end up stripping the end off of the tool or breaking the snail cam adjuster off of your shock, which will then send you to the dealership to get more parts. Adjusting snail cams is easy. The steeper the ramp is, the stiffer the preload, and the taller the ride height. At the maximum setting, trail rides will become rougher and the vehicle will sit taller, increasing your ground clearance, but also the center of gravity, making your side-by-side feel more tippy. I recommend this stiff setting if you're pulling a heavy load, using the weight capacity of the cargo box, or mud running and looking for the most amount of ground clearance possible. On the flip side, if you don't require your side-by-side to carry the heaviest loads possible, or you don't require the largest ground clearance you can get, then you can drop your snail cams down to the lowest setting. It's going to ensure the plushest ride. But keep in mind the age of the vehicle, the weight of the riders, as well as the condition of the shocks and springs, because it might just be too soft. The lowest setting on most utility side-by-sides will be very adequate for comfortable trail riding. The vehicle will display more roll to the outside of corners due to the softer spring setting. However, through most moderate bumps will produce the best possible ride quality due to a slight amount of sag, allowing the wheels to drop into bumps. While ground clearance will be reduced, the beauty of snail cams is they're easy to change. So don't be afraid to try different settings in different conditions. Front and rear settings can be different, but adjustments must be made the same on the front or the rear to avoid potentially dangerous handling characteristics.
Some utility and sport utility side-by-sides have shocks that actually automatically or electronically adjust for the riding terrain or the load that you're asking it to carry. While these features are only found on premium models, they're typically worth the price if you're asking them to do a big job. Polaris's Ranger HD has a very cool NevaMat shock package in the rear that mechanically pumps up the shocks with heavier loads to help level the rear of the vehicle and does not require manual adjustment. This technology is the ultimate for utility users seeking worry-free, heavy-duty performance. In the sport utility class, the Commander Limited features the Fox Float electronic adjustable shocks, which can be adjusted from inside the cab to increase or decrease air pressure in all 4 shocks. This system essentially changes the preload of the air spring and is the ultimate in ease of use and one of my favorite suspension setups in the sport utility business. The sport utility category represents the majority of side-by-side owners, and to ensure that you're getting the most out of your sport utility, you need to make sure that you adjust your suspension and understand what you're doing for the conditions that you're asking your side-by-side to work in.
Can't get enough of Dirt Trax television? Log on to DirtTraxTV.com to watch all your favorite episodes and visit our Facebook page to share your thoughts with other fans of Dirt Trax. Dirt Trax Television has been sponsored by Polaris, the hardest working, smoothest riding off-road vehicles. Can-Am, the ride says it all. And by Arctic Cat, share our passion.